You're listening to WRUU-LP, Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings, community radio with global soul.
Check, check, 1, 2. Look like a little country, some rock and roll and blues, 'cause we sure love playing for good people like you. Let me know if you can hear me. Check, check, 1, 2.
Welcome to Music Local and Sustainable, the radio show that features discussions with and the music of local musicians. I am your host, Dave Lake. Tonight we are talking with Jon Waits, known for both his performances with his band Waits & Company and as a photographer. Tonight we're going to be talking about his music. Welcome, Jon Waits.
Well, thank you, Dave. I appreciate it. I appreciate everything you're doing over here in community radio.
It's really interesting. I've heard both the version of Crazy Things that's on the album, but I've heard an alternative take of Crazy Things too, probably done at the same time. And they're quite different in terms of your vocalization. In the one that's on the album, your vocalization is very aggressive, very emphatic. You land on the words really strong. In the other one, it is a little bit more laid back, not as aggressive.
1, 2, 3, 4. When you wanna tell them this, but you dare not open the door again. Is it that I'm simple lonesome? On what I had back then. Yes, I pushed her away, so far away, thinking I did not feel enough. And now I'm sitting here, you know, I'm wondering if she'd take me back again. Crazy things to do, like breaking hearts in two. Got me wondering if I'll ever get it right. Don't you know I don't hardly know my mind myself, and now I'm wondering where you are tonight. All right. So badly wanna pick up the telephone. I tell myself it's just to give you a ring. It ain't near fair for me to keep it now, hanging on an unknown string. Crazy things to do, like breaking hearts in two. It's got me wondering if I'll ever get it right. Don't you know I don't hardly know myself, and now I'm wondering where you are tonight. So I guess it's time for me to just let it all go. But you know, I'm always gonna sit around here and give it a think on the good times that we once shared, yeah. Darling, I hope you can do the same. Crazy things that do, like I'm breaking hearts in two. Got me wondering if I'll ever get it right. Don't you know I don't have to know my mind myself, and I'm wondering where you are tonight. Crazy things that do, like breaking hearts in two. Got me wondering if I'll ever get it right. Don't you know I don't have to know my mind myself, and now I'm wondering where you are tonight. Now I'm wondering where you are tonight. Yeah. When you all tell them you miss them, but you dare not open the door again. Is it that I'm simply lonesome? Do I want what I had back then? Yes, I pushed her away so far away, thinking I did not feel enough. Now I'm sitting here wondering if she'd take me back again. Crazy things I did, like breaking hearts in two. Got me wondering if I'll ever get it right. Don't you know I don't hardly know my mind myself, and I'm wondering where you are tonight. So badly I wanna pick up the telephone and tell myself it's just to give you a ring. It ain't near fair for me to keep you hanging on an unknown string. Crazy things I did, like breaking hearts in two. Got me wondering if I'll ever get it right. Don't you know I don't hardly know my mind myself, and I'm wondering where you are tonight. I guess that I'll just let it go. But you know that I'm always gonna think on the good times that we once shared. Darling, I hope you can do the same. Crazy
things I do, like breaking hearts in two. Got me wondering if I'll ever get it right. Don't you know I don't hardly know my mind myself, and I'm wondering where you are tonight. Yes, I'm wondering where you are tonight.
Cool.
Do you change the songs from time to time?
I think the nuance, even certain pronunciations of things, I think it does change. I think it changes depending on the environment, depending on the room. I think it changes with the weather. I think it changes with what time of year it is. Waits & Co. is primarily an agent for my writing. That I'm fortunate, extremely fortunate to have Marcus Kuhlman and John Pitzkemi playing with me. And we're definitely a unit. It's not the Jon Waits show, but it is my material that we're working with. And so it's one of those things where a lot of those tunes in the songwriting process, of course, started out completely different than how they have sort of grown into over the course of the last few years of playing them live. There's also something to the fact that when you're playing a lot of these venues, and this is something that my fiance gets after me about, is that if you're to really pay attention to the lyrics and what a lot of the stuff that I write about is actually about, it's not the most uplifting material. So a lot of times we'll throw faster beat or a little bit of a jump to it, and then that makes it sort of more palatable for the masses as far as enjoying being out and us being more of a background and not a focus. The Savannah market, a lot of it is quote unquote menu venues, and so that was a bit of a switch for me to get used to, coming from Atlanta and other cities around the country where I'd played, where you as the performer are the focus. In Savannah, it sort of cuts a different way. You can make a good living at it, but you sometimes, I mean, I say this jokingly, and certainly not to offend any of my employers, but sometimes you're a bit of a potted plant. I mean, you're in the background, and that's your job. So as far as the enunciation or the emphasis or what have you, I mean, that all just sort of changes depending on the atmosphere that you're in. That's my long-winded answer to your very short question.
Long-winded answers are welcome because they're complete.
Well, again, Anita, my fiance, says that I am prolific, but she doesn't mean that as a compliment most of the time.
Well, on this show, that is a compliment.
Well, thank you.
You refer to your music as alt low country.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean by that?
Well, you know the term alt country, being alternative country, being not the new Nashville sound, but sort of a return to some of the traditional country style, but with the modern take on it. Savannah has a very unique flavor. It's a melting pot. As great of a place as it is a southern sort of backwater town in a lot of ways. That's just the truth of it. And so in that backwater town, you've got all of these different combinations and different styles and different flavors coming together. I mean, it's sort of a big pot of stew. And while a lot of my inspiration does come from listening to Willie and Waylon and Hank Sr. and some of the real forerunners of country music, I can't say that we sound like a country band. I mean, we don't try to pull that off either. One of the greatest compliments that I ever heard, and I in no way would claim this for myself, but we had played at the A-Town Get Down one year, and we came off stage, and this guy comes up to me, and he's just like, "Man, I couldn't believe it. I swear that you were singing a Merle Haggard song." And it turned out that it was one of ours. Now, all he was hearing was the influence of somebody that I greatly admire. And I think instead of trying to emulate the superstars are trying to do what other people are doing. I mean, the big compliment to me is if someone can hear that element of the things that inspired me coming out. So alt low country is a low country version of that alt country sound, I guess.
And what gives it the low country? What gives it the Savannah sound? What characterizes that part of it?
It has to do just with the feel of being here. There's not one thing that I can just pinpoint. There it is. It's these hotter than hot summers. It's the Spanish moss. It's the brackish water. It's the tides. It's all of these wonderful things. And it's, again, the melting pot of all of these different personalities coming together down here. I grew up in Atlanta, but I have lived all over the States. I've traveled all over the world. But I keep coming back to Georgia. At this point, Atlanta, while it is my old hometown, is not a place that I would feel comfortable living anymore. And I moved down here 5 years ago. I moved to South Georgia 5 years ago. I moved to Savannah 4, I guess. And it's had to do with the acceptance of creative culture and a little bit of eccentricity, sort of a come-as-you-are feeling that I get when I'm here.
Let's talk a little bit about your musical inspirations.
So here's the thing. I grew up listening to the Stones and the Who and Zeppelin and a lot of the great 60s, 70s classic rock bands. I was born in the 70s, and so that was a little bit closer to the time period of when some of that great stuff was being written and performed. And those were all great things. I was really late coming to the country bandwagon. I remember when I was in my early 20s, a good friend telling me, she was just like, you really ought to be checking this stuff out. This seems more like you than continuing to rehash this classic rock stuff over and over. Sort of the turning point for me was listening to Graham Parsons. It was that melding of the two styles, I think, and it was his respect for all of the old school country, but yet he was doing it in his own brand in his own way. So once I heard that, then that got me crate digging for older stuff. I was always the youngest guy in a group of older folks, except for my best friend. He and I sort of were always, shadowing the older folks. So we were fortunate in that they had their little bit of education in music style and culture and passed it on, and that got me digging a little further and deeper. And so it's not so much about like the outlaw style and da-da-da-da. For me, what it was at least with the country stuff, I found that, number one, on the surface, the old school stuff is generally, it's pretty simple, it's pretty storytelling, it's not a lot of chords, it's not a lot of fanciness. Now that I'm a little bit older and I can look back as a songwriter, I mean, there is some just amazing crafting going on, which is below the surface, that if you're not really paying attention, it just kind of slides right by you. But it's about simplicity. I think I've always craved authenticity, and I've always craved simplicity. And I was living a life for many, many years that was the complete opposite of both of those things. I've been very open about the fact that I'm in recovery, that I was a drug addict and an alcoholic for many, 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 many years. And so, consequently, I was living a lie. But it was one that I didn't know how to get around. I mean, it was the truth to me at the time, but it, in retrospect, wasn't. And so I think there was something in all of those old school artists that I would listen to their stuff and I'm just like, they're telling the truth. They're just putting it out there. And the consequences. And that was inspiring to me. It still continues to inspire me. Living out loud. I mean, you have to be a little bit careful. I need to keep some of me, for those closest to me. I don't need to put everything out there. But in my songwriting, there is no reason to run or try and put a shiny polish on something. I think telling the truth, and if it's my own personal truth, therefore makes it authentic, therefore makes it relatable to other people, no matter what the subject matter is.
Do you think those artists have influenced you both as a performer and as a composer?
As a performer, yes. I've been playing music since I was 10. I'm 43 now. My first public performance would have been when I was probably 15. So it's one of those things where I've been doing this a long time. But prior to coming to Savannah, it was more of the occasional coffee house gig. It was more of the folk singer-songwriter kind of style stuff. Yeah, I was in some bands in Atlanta. We performed. I'm making air quotes as I say this. But it's not the same as being a working musician. And so I think gaining a little bit of perspective over the last 4 years, and then looking back at what all these guys and women have done over the years, just as far as on the bus and every day and playing a new town and all that sort of stuff, and watching, going back and looking and watching at some of the old footage and stuff, and it's like, I can tell you for a fact that a lot of that sort of in-between song banter and all that sort of stuff, it's funny because I wouldn't have known how to do that, how to keep the crowd sort of paying attention in between things, if I hadn't have listened to a bunch of those older artists and watched what they did over the years.
I was talking to another musician in town, Tom Cooler. Mm-hmm. We were just talking about some of his favorite local artists, and one of the first songs he mentioned was Walking Faithfully. So let's talk a little bit about Walking Faithfully.
That one was written, and by the way, let me just say thank you to Tom Cooler for that. Tom is a great guy, and he is a huge supporter of live music in Savannah, and it's a pleasure to get to know him a little bit as time goes along. So, that being said, Walking Faithfully was written actually in Lexington, Kentucky, and I wrote that probably in the span of about 15 minutes one night. It was one of those ones that it just, boom, once it started, out it came. I mean, of course, you tweak it over time and it becomes a little bit different, but most of the lyrics and certainly all of the music were written in 15, 20 minutes when I was up in Lexington once. At that point, I had been trying to get clean, and I was on a trip to visit a friend of mine who is a pastor up in Kentucky, and so I was just staying with him for a couple of nights. I was sitting out on his back porch, and that one just sort of came to me. That was not one of the successful attempts at getting clean, but it's a long road, and you have your bumps where you find them and keep on moving. That one is most assuredly one of the upbeat ones. We can always count on at least getting a couple of people up and moving for that one, so that's nice. It's a fun song.
Well, now if you ever was a girl of mine, I guess it's just about our time that I say that I'm sorry to you if I ever left you lonesome and blue. Well, now if you ever was a friend of mine, it's right possible that I stole your bottle of wine. If you feel it in you to forgive, I think it's kinda 'cause I'm trying to find a new way to live. Now if you say that I done you wrong, truly sorry, baby, for a long time to come. Now I've heard there's many a grudge on me, walking the straight line, baby, and walking it faithfully. Walk on. this might be an apology of his own kind. I'd set 20 pace, cause you know that I'm working on the Lord's time. If you think that I'm not being sincere, well then I guess it's my only cross I'm gonna have to bear. You thought I lived my life free of care with ease, but the days of dependence, they shook me right down to my knees. Pills, powders, and another bottle of booze. Ah! Them was the days of chains that I couldn't shake loose. Now if you say that I done you wrong, truly sorry, baby, for a long time to come. Now I've heard many a grudge under me, walking the straight line, baby, and walking it faithfully. Walk on.
In context that you just presented, walking the straight line, walking faithfully, does that have a double meaning?
At the time, I had been in a relationship with a wonderful woman for a long time, and her statement to me had basically been like, yeah, I want to get married, I want to have kids, I want to do all these things with you, not until you get straight, not until you get clean, not until you're able to walk the line. And it wasn't really a riff on Johnny Cash's Walk the Line. It just happened to sort of fit what was going on in my life at the time. And she happened to be on that same trip up to Kentucky, so it's pretty much straightforward. That one is.
The line that always sticks is something to the effect of, if you were ever a friend of mine, it's quite possible that I stole your bottle of wine. Yeah, if you've been a friend of mine, you've seen that. You've seen that behavior.
And I can tell you the exact moment that did happen. That one line was written about a specific friend in Atlanta, and I remember when that exactly went down. So most of my stuff is autobiographical. Since I've been playing for so long, it is, and it was my very, I guess, best form of therapy. I always knew that I could write and I could get the things out that I couldn't necessarily talk about or didn't feel like I was able to speak about with people. There were many, many years where I sought lots of therapy and tried, but I wasn't ready for a change, was what it came down to. There were a lot of people over the years who've tried to help me get to a place of stability and knowing of myself and understanding that essentially I'm the problem at the end of the day, but I'm also part of the solution. Yeah, you listen to Waits & Co. You're basically listening to a diary of sorts from over the years.
So the songs start with the lyrics?
Not always. It's just back and forth. A lot of times it's the music first, or it'll just be a riff. Something gets stuck in my head and it just keeps going round and round and round. But there's little one-liners that are popping off in my head, and then that becomes the next piece. And it's been a while since I've had one of those moments where the way that I describe it is basically just the atmosphere opens whatever the creator is, that part of, you know, this universal existence is, it just opens for a minute and you're able to sort of grab hold of whatever it is that's coming at you. Haven't had one of those in a while, honestly, because I've just been so busy.